Hello everyone, it's Danny. Welcome to the greenhouse. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new, thanks for clicking. I'm happy to have you. Welcome new subscribers. Today we're going to talk about Phalaenopsis and the pros and cons of having Phalaenopsis orchids. First we'll start with the pros because why not? So let's get going. The first pro is availability. These Phalaenopsis are really available everywhere. To your grocery stores, your hardware stores, your big box stores, even your local garden nurseries. And unfortunately, if you're looking for something other than this type of orchid, and if you don't live in the warmer states down south, you do have to go online to look for those. But with these big and miniature hybrids, I think because of the availability, that's how most orchid addicts start. They start with their Phalaenopsis that they saw while they were out grocery shopping or picking something up from the hardware store and decided to get it. And that's where the orchid addiction began. So the first pro is availability. These are available everywhere. The next pro is variety, you guys. And you can see it right here. From colors to shapes of the blooms to the size of the blooms, the variety offered is just outstanding. You can find just a slew of different colors of the rainbow. From peachy colors to yellow to purple, polka dot, blush, polka dot stripe and veining, to your classic white. And I think this is how the addiction to Phalaenopsis continues, because as a new grower or even as a experienced older grower, you go into the grocery store for something, maybe some bread, and you see a new variety, a new color, a new pattern that you don't have, and you say to yourself, I have to bring this one home. And so that's what you do, and so forth. The addiction continues. And not just with colors and shapes and styles of the blooms, but with also size of the orchid itself. You have your really big ones. You have medium-sized ones, and then you also have small, miniature ones, and you can see just how tiny. So they really offer a variety of so many different things, colors, shapes, sizes, which is just a fantastic pro to me, because that means I just keep buying Phalaenopsis orchids. The next pro is price. These are so affordable. These are affordable for everyone. And I think that's another reason why people become Phalaenopsis addicts. I have gotten Phalaenopsis between $1 and the most I've paid is $29.99. And what a lot of these big box stores will do, once the blooms start fading off of the orchid, they will discount them tremendously. And I believe I got this one here about 2 years ago for $1. And so you go to these stores and you see all these Phalaenopsis discounted, and you say, I just have to bring this one home, it's only $1. And so there again, the addiction continues. Oh my goodness. And our husbands or our wives or our significant others probably look at us coming through the front door with 3 or 4 more orchids, but we can tell them, hey, these are only $1 a piece. And then the next year to come, you have a beautiful show. So price is outstanding with these. And what I have found here locally is the grocery stores and the big home improvement stores are a lot cheaper versus privately owned local nurseries that offer them. So these ones I got for $9.99 a piece. And this big one here, I paid $19 or $20 at a privately owned nursery. But that's still a fantastic price. So price wise, it's a huge pro for these orchids. Another pro is that they can be very easy rebloomers for you. And what I mean by that is, as long as these are getting that temperature drop, which I've done a couple of videos on, I'll leave a link to those videos in the description. But as long as you give them that temperature drop, they will rebloom for you. And sometimes keep reblooming off of an already existing spike. They'll start popping out 1, 2, 3 new buds and just keep going. And sometimes, like this one here, while they have an existing flower spike, they'll also push out a brand new flower spike. And it really is a sight and a show to see when all of these Phalaenopsis start reblooming for you. So now it's time for cons. And my biggest con for Phalaenopsis orchids are the size of some of them. Well, a lot of them. You can see this one is just huge. And this is really unfortunate for people that grow in home on windowsills or small greenhouses like mine, just small spaces, period. Because if you're caring for a Phalaenopsis the correct way, each new leaf should be bigger. But even so, you can just see how big a Phalaenopsis can be and how much space it can take up. And not just the size of the leaf span, but the size of the flower spikes themselves can be huge. As you can see on these big phals, you can see how big the flower spikes can come to be. So not just the leaf span, but the flower spikes themselves can be huge. And if you're growing on a shelving unit kind of like this, and those flower spikes start coming up, well, you need to start moving stuff around. You can see that big one growing there. So these orchids, the medium-sized ones to the really large ones, can take up a lot of space. So that is a con. Another really big con for me is, surprisingly, most of these orchids are not fragrant, unfortunately. And I had a really hard time with this concept when I first started growing, because in my mind I thought, it's a flower, it should smell good. I love an orchid that has a nice fragrance to it. So I just couldn't understand that concept. But unfortunately, most of them will not have a fragrance for you. But there has been times where I found some that do have a fragrance. This beautiful peachy one here has a fragrance of like a sweet candy. And most of the ones I've only found like 4, you guys. So don't get your hopes up. Don't get excited, because it's far and few and in between that you might find one that's fragrant. But the ones that I have found are fragrant have never been a big one like this. It's always been a medium to miniature one. So, you know, use your nose, sniff them out. You might find yourself a fragrant one here and there. The last con is temperature drop. I touched on this in one of the pros about it being an easy rebloomer if you do give them that temperature drop. But here's where it gets tricky. Most growers grow inside their homes, and your home stays at a steady temperature. And so therefore your orchid doesn't rebloom for you or spike. So that temperature drop, it's kind of a nuisance trying to find a cooler room in your house, a cooler spot. Some people even will set theirs out on their porch overnight. Not too cold though, you guys. Or in their basement to get that temperature drop. Or some people even drop their thermostat at night for a few weeks to get reblooms. So the temperature drop can be kind of a nuisance to make sure you do that to get your blooms. But if you do that, you will get blooms. So you guys, those are my pros and cons to growing Phalaenopsis orchids. And yet the biggest pro is just that beautiful bloom. Happy growing, everybody. Till next time.